So I'm laying down and I'm trying to sleep. I took some melatonin, but I can't sleep. And I've just got a lot on my mind right now. It's like way past when I should be sleeping. Um, I guess I'm just thinking about a lot of stuff and kind of what I want to say online. I've recently started uploading to YouTube again. Um, After taking a break for a few months. Um, because I guess I was overwhelmed by a lot of stuff. I had been working on music pretty fervently, um, learning how to make music videos and kind of get better at that and produce music. And I had a lot of other stuff on my plate. I'm working on a book of poetry and autobiographical autobiographical collection of essays, kind of analyzing my experiences as being mixed race as well as not straight. Um, and then just other stuff, personal stuff that I don't really want to get into, but yeah, I feel pretty burnt out and tired. And I also deal with some mental health issues like depression. It's nothing I can't manage. It's stuff I've dealt with since I was young, but it's just things that lead to feeling overwhelmed. And then also, as far as social media go, I talked about it in my last vlog video like this. Our Asian Identity, the subreddit. There's a vocal minority there that lashes out against mixed race people, and you know uh, I want to be cool and be like, oh, stuff online like trolling or negative comments don't mean anything, but I'm human, and yeah, sometimes they do upset me, and most oftentimes when someone's trolling or being cruel, I'm just like, this motherfucker. But um yeah, with everything going on, I was just like, you know what? It's not good for me right now to really be paying so much attention to this. But then I took 3 months, I didn't do any social media at all. And then I started to get back into it. And now I've decided starting this week to um, do a new schedule where I upload a short 5 days a week. And there's a structure um, that'll reveal itself, but I'm mainly going to focus purely on issues related to Asian things. And really, I want to clarify because I've seen some comments on the last vlog video that I posted, saying like, "Good job getting off Asian identity," or "Fuck Asian identity." So I've seen the analytics on that video, and I know that out of all the views it had, barely anyone watched the whole thing. And then the comments when I reposted it to Asian identity, uh, it was obvious. I think there was only one guy in the comment thread who watched the whole thing, and it was funny because they called me a narcissist, but they were like, "Why is everyone hating on this guy? Like, he's not saying anything wrong or bad." And that's the thing, mob mentality and people piling on. They That's why shorts are actually, I feel like, a better way to reach people, because especially it's been helping me really like be clear and concise, which isn't exactly what I'm doing now. This kind of video is more for me, to help me sort out my thoughts because I couldn't sleep. I feel like I have to reorganize my mind. Kind of just put things out there. That's kind of what I want to talk about. And this concerns Asian identity. I want to be clear, like, as far as Asian identity goes and Asian subreddits or mixed subreddits, I find them valuable. I think that ultimately they are a good thing. And especially, I've made several posts about this, but Asian identity is the subreddit I am most active on. I post quite often there. I'm always looking through it. Um, here's how I became involved in that sub. I think I talked about it in my last video, but um, I made a post about how I had been told I couldn't grow out my hair long, and then a white guy was hired at my job who had less experience than me, and he had long hair, and they let him keep it. And then when I grew out my mustache too, there were two black men working in the office who had goatees, and I was the only one being told I needed to shave. So I posted about that, and that was reposted to Asian Identity. So I was like, oh, what's this subreddit? And I checked it out, and it was like going through it and reading about it. My whole life started making sense. All the weird things that happened, all the stereotypes I've dealt with, I highly recommend checking it out. People talk about real things that happen and stuff that I haven't seen talked about really anywhere else. There's another subreddit, MRAsian American, and I think they post good stuff too, but overall, I feel like the subreddit MRAsian Identity is kind of afraid to talk about more hard hitting raw subjects, which there is a fine line when it comes to certain subjects. Like, something I think people are afraid to talk about is the fact that Asian men are emasculated. It's cultural dominance, really, cultural subjugation, which leads to stereotypes and Asian women in America being pressured to despise Asian men and really fetishize white men and seek white men approval, or black men or Hispanic men, but to a lesser extent. And that's something that leads to a lot of resentment on a lot of Asian men's part because they feel marginalized by society. Dealing with small dick jokes and all your life, which is tied into sexual worth and things like that, and being treated as, nerdy or asexual martial artist, and overall feeling like cast aside. And then society emphasizes so heavily this idea that your worth is based on your sexual attractiveness. So all that coupled together builds into this huge ball of resentment, which, people try to erase and act like it's not there and it's not justified. But it is justified. Like, let me explain. Okay. What people are afraid of in MRAsian Identity is that there are some people there who try to flip the script. And this goes in like calling out Asian women who disparage Asian men, and calling out those sexual power dynamics, the sexual politics I mentioned, like things like in porn, or the prevalence of like white men with Asian women in porn, or let's say like black men being said to have big penises and Asian men being said to have small penises, these kind of things. And then there's, because of the, how do you say it, the reactionary anger that a lot of Asian men feel, they post disparaging comments about white men, or to a lesser extent black people or Hispanic people, whatever, but mainly let's say about white men. And or there's a word lu about Asian women who behave in a way that, and I was I made a post about it, but I'll talk about it later in a short because I feel like I can be more concise. But pretty much, I was in Arizona, and this white guy, this was last year, I was just hanging out at a bar, and this white guy, I don't even know, um, I was in a group, and this Asian girl, she was actually half Asian like me, but she came up, and we were just all having a normal conversation. Her white boyfriend came up and just started calling me Bobby Lee. And he was really like, to be honest, I was pretty fucked up, so I feel like I handled it well in my inebriated state. But I just said, he was like, "Oh, you look like Bobby Lee," and his girlfriend immediately started agreeing with him. And I was pretty fucked up. I was just like, "Fuck you, no, I don't." Like, I'm in shape. I don't look like Bobby Lee, and I'm in shape, whatever about his body type, but we don't have the same body type. We don't have the same facial features. The only thing we have in common is that we're Asian. And I figured out a long time ago that insecure white people, like this guy, he called me Bobby Lee twice. Bobby Lee is someone who has made a career out of leaning into, or really, not just leaning into, but wallowing in Asian stereotypes. People like Bobby Lee or Ken Jeong I consider to be bootlicking Asians, so they capitalize off of negative stereotypes on Asian men, like Ken Jeong showing his small penis in The Hangover and doing that wonky Asian accent, which Bobby Lee always does, and all kinds of just really self-deprecating, stereotypical behavior. I don't respect them. I consider them bad for Asians as a whole. They exist as people. I don't think there's anything wrong with having a small penis or being out of shape or anything like that, but making a career off of negative stereotypes is damaging. So, back to my original point, a lot of people, and this is something that I had to work through and rationalize through. Yeah, I've gotten death threats from a few users. There's one or two users that have followed me on Reddit, and pretty much like wherever I post, sometimes like they'll leave like bizarre comments about like "fuck your white dad" and "your whore mother" and shit like that. Just really bizarre stuff. And at first it really bothered me because I hadn't really uh, analyzed my experience as the product of white imperialism, essentially, because my father was a white soldier and he met my mother in South Korea. Now, I'm not saying, my father was a bad person or a bad father. I don't feel that way, and in the book I'm working on, I go more into depth about my relationship with my parents and things like that. But that's essentially it. The way that Korea is, and much of Asia is, pretty much all of Asia is because of imperialism. And so, anyway, as far as our Asian identity is concerned, um, there is an attempt by a lot of people there to flip the script, to make white people look bad. And this is a desire. Martin Luther King has a quote about black people rioting, and he said that it's not so much anger or wanting to destroy, but it's this desire to experience what white people get to experience all the time, which is that they are able to take things without consequence. So there is a sense of envy, I feel like, that is present in all minority groups, that we want to experience power that white people have had for so long, have had over us. And this applies, like police brutality against black people is horrendous, and against all minorities as well. And there's also complications between minority groups, but ultimately I do feel, and ironically, even with something like the privilege of being white in a society that favors white people, that the real enemy, I feel like, is the wealthy. So racial division, I feel, is perpetuated to keep the masses divided. And that's really where I feel that the failings of it's never going to work to empower a minority group if our end goal is to seek the destruction of white people or the subjugation of white people. I don't think it's ever going to work. Or it may work, but only temporarily until white people revolt. Because that's the way it goes. Like, power just switches back and forth. Like, let's say that there's an Asian revolution, China, and this is why anti-Asian sentiment is so high, because white people fear that they'll be treated like they've been treating Asian people. So hypothetically, let's say that China takes over the world, right? They become number one, just like America has. And Asians treat the world exactly as we've been treated. That's gonna fuck a lot of white people over, and black people, and Hispanic people, because we've been treated like dirt by a lot of those people. So even if that happens, right? And a part of me is like, oh yeah, finally people like me can have power. I can have power. Yeah, there's that's a very human and natural desire to have. And I feel like that goes for every group. Black people, I see that kind of behavior all the time, where it's like trying to flip the script and say, like, black people are the greatest at everything, infallible, can't be racist, all these things. And look, I try to look beyond all that. I am Asian. I am advocating and trying to educate about the Asian experience, about Asian culture, in the sense of the Asian American diasporic culture, pan-Asian culture. I just made a short about this. I shouldn't say Asian culture because it confuses people. There's 48 countries in Asia. They all have separate cultures. But in being Asian passing, I'm half white. I've never been treated as white, but in being Asian passing, I have lived a life as an Asian man. Yes, also as a mixed man, but I'm able to speak on the Asian experience. And there's a lot of erasure and there's a lot of subjugation that needs to be brought to light before we're able to advance as a society. And that's ultimately my hopes and my goals in even making this video right now, or my YouTube channel. And yeah, there's fun stuff that I do, just pure entertainment. I love music and things like that, and literature, and I want to make fun things too. But I had this thought. There's a YouTuber I really like, ContraPoints, who has something like 1.5 million subscribers, right? And then Paris Hilton, which is kind of a household name, she has like 1.3 million subscribers. So I've thought about, like, famous people I've seen pop up. Like, let's think like Post Malone or Billie Eilish. people who are heavily promoted. Really, what platform are they on, though? They're on this one. They're on YouTube. Most of the music we listen to by them are the same platforms that I'm on: YouTube, Spotify, other platforms, TikTok. We live in a very special time where the average person who has a smartphone and a computer can make videos, can make music, and share them with the world. So I think about, Paris Hilton may be more of a household name, but people don't really know what she's up to now. Or if they do follow her YouTube, like, what is she doing? I'm sure she's doing some things that are cool or whatever, but ContraPoints is a transgender, kind of a political essayist, social essayist. She makes these video essays talking about different things that I find valuable to the advancement of society. So that's ultimately what I want to do as well, is contribute to the advancement of society to make us a more civilized people. So as far as our Asian identity goes, I believe that it's part of the bigger picture. Like, even our Asian American, or whatever other Asian spaces, Asian American spaces, I find them valuable because I wish that I had things like this when I was younger. I mean, I'm approaching 30 now, and when I was a kid, all I had was my mother, who is Korean, and she came to the States when she married my father. So she didn't live the Asian American life until she was already an adult. So all I had, like, I'm glad I had my mother because it connected me to my Korean culture, my Korean heritage. But I had a white father, so it's not like I had, an Asian American role model to look up to. I even to this day, I only know like a handful of Asian Americans because we're not taught things like this. If you ask the average American, name an Asian American, they'll say, "Oh, Bruce Lee," who wasn't even Asian American, or like Jackie Chan, who's not Asian American. And Asian Americans are a huge part of American history and culture, and we don't know about it. I don't know about it. So my goal with uploading and things like that is to educate myself and educate others, as well as promote unity. Ultimately, look, we're all human, right? We're all trying to make sense of this world that we're thrust into. And it's really frustrating that something as simple as skin color, shape of the eyes, where you come from, is how we categorize and judge people. And it's so sad to me that there's whole societies that are still killing people, torturing people, forcing a group of people to behave a certain way, gender to behave a certain way. It's base and backwards and primitive. And I look at all this amazing technology that we have available to us today, this incredible connectivity. Like right now, I'm just talking on my phone in bed, and I can reach people all over the world. I made a post on Reddit the other day. I forget which one it was, but it had pretty high visibility. It had like, I made it in a moment, and then it had like 80,000 views. And that's 80,000 people all around the world who saw something that I put out in an instant. That's amazing. It's like we're a brain. The earth is a brain, and humans are neurons on the brain, and we're all forming synapses and connecting. And I believe that that's almost how we'll become a more conscious planet, a conscious species by connecting like this and exchanging packets of useful information. And ultimately, I have a peace sign here, right? And I believe in peace, right? But I don't want to be so vague like the hippies in the 60s, which is a misconception because they had very, and this relates to Asian history and something I'm going to talk about, the Vietnam War. The hippie movement was a badass movement because they had real principles and values, but the stereotype of the hippie movement is peace and love, man, smoking weed, whatever. I want to be clear, like peace and love are abstract concepts, but real attainable goals is what I'm interested in. So, what I mean by that is, what is the purpose of life? That meaning is only sought within the relationship between interactions. That is to say that we can only derive meaning by analyzing the cause and the effect and the comparison of two different things, which results from categorization. So, what is the meaning of this earplug? What is the purpose of it? Well, we can say like it's to block out noise, but why does that happen? Because I put it in my ear and it blocks out noise. It doesn't inherently have a purpose, but because it has a certain result that I am interested in or that I seek to obtain, that becomes its purpose or its meaning. So I'm not looking for any abstract peace, love, whatever by making these videos, by uploading music. My interest is, at least I feel compelled to seek what I find the ultimate goal of human life. I mean, we all face death. We are all limited. Probably the universe will be annihilated at one point in the far, far future. The heat death of the universe. But in my limited time, I feel compelled to encourage cooperation between people. I see humans as this incredibly gifted ball of potential that has this cooperative potential. I mean, the nature of nature, life, is cooperation. Species that work better together thrive. And humans really have reached the pinnacle of cooperation. We have nations, whole nations that cooperate. So how beautiful would it be if we could get the whole planet to cooperate? That's why what's happening in Russia and Ukraine right now is so chilling. And I sincerely hope that we as a species can learn to grow out of our warlike tendencies. What I see as the enemy is whatever seeks to divide us. So, our Asian identity I see as a great thing because it woke me up to what was dividing me from my dignity as a human. It was subjugating it. It enlightened me to the subjugations that I've faced, the marginalization that I've faced. Now, whatever minority sentiments that people criticize the subreddit about, I see that as creating division as well. But at the same time, I suppose I'm biased and I want to be more forgiving because I see that the anger is partly justified. But there's a toxicity that can be allowed to ferment that is, I see as dangerous. And there's a difference between calling out problematic behaviors like let's say Asian women disparaging Asian men. There's a difference between calling that behavior out and seeking to amend it through education. There's a difference between that and then simply just disparaging Asian women and calling them whores or sluts that only love white cock. Like, that is more toxic and doesn't lead to anything but further division. So I sincerely hope that as far as the future goes, we can all just see each other as humans, and ethnicity and race are just kind of interesting things about someone. We just see it as like part of their history, and we view each other as equals. Whether you're white, black, Asian, whatever, short, tall, girl, boy, transgender, religious or non-religious, like, we just view people on their merit. Like Martin Luther King said, the content of your character. What are you good at? What can you do? That seems more useful than what do you look like? What do you feel sexual towards, as long as it's consensual? Like, or do you think there's a giant white guy in the clouds that controls everything or not? No, that kind of stuff doesn't seem important at all. It's just another way to categorize and control people and divide people. Now, we can get in a longer discussion on like why these kind of behaviors develop. Maybe they had an evolutionary purpose in the first place. Maybe. I mean, it's useful in survival, I suppose, to be able to categorize and distinguish people that are like me versus people that are not like me. But there's so many different points we can make about this. Like, for instance, the Rwandan genocide was a genocide between black people, or Jews in Germany. In America we considered them white, but in Germany they were considered a different ethnicity, so they were wiped out. Things like that. So ultimately, whatever these instincts that led to racism, you know, whatever arguments there are that these may have been useful, they don't apply now in today's world because we're globalized. Right now, I can connect to anyone in the world through a smartphone. And, when transportation technology improves, probably we'll be able to go anywhere in the world like that. So, the main problem in the world I see right now is that kind of division: racial division, religious division, sexual division, gender division, unity, and national division too, because nations are just another concept of categorization. Nationalistic pride and radicalism is something I see as useful for the time being, but something we should pursue growing out of for the sake of cooperation. I feel like I've said everything I need to say. I'm not sure I'm going to upload this. I'm probably just going to go to sleep and then decide if I want to upload it tonight. But yeah, I know probably not a lot of people will watch this, so it sometimes feels like I'm just screaming into the void. But if you do watch this, I hope you've heard me. and I feel like I've put something out there that I needed to, because now I feel like I'm more calm and I can probably get to sleep soon. So, yeah. I'm going to upload another short when I wake up. And I'm shooting for 5 days a week now, so. And then I'll have my book out soon. Not sure exactly when. It's almost done. I think I've got a little bit more to write, and then I need to edit it. And then my book of poetry, that one's almost done. Well, they're companion pieces, so they'll be released at the same time. And then I have a video essay I plan to do about the book, The Joy Luck Club, the book and the movie, The Joy Luck Club. So I'll probably release all of those around the same time. Maybe I'll release the books first. And then after all that, I'm going to keep uploading the shorts probably, and I'm going to start working on a new music album. So it's good to be back on social media and uploading on YouTube again. It feels good. Even though I do kind of feel burnt out, I do feel like I'm working towards the goals that I want to be working towards. So, yep. I think I've said everything I want to say. I know these kind of vlog videos are rambling, but I know hardly anyone watches them anyway, and I don't even care, because I feel like it's fun to have kind of these real ass videos. And I probably watch them more than anyone else, because I see it as kind of like a public video journal. And it's fun for me to see like where my thoughts were at a certain time. So yeah, I think I've said everything I need to say. So I hope everything goes well for you. And you have the best of luck. Peace out.